sec. Before we do, I like to start off sessions like this with a good story. Does anybody have a good story that they can share with the rest of the group? Nobody? All right, let me start. Just go ahead, Kathy. You have one?
Just going to say I went to a firm today in Rowan County, and they told me that I'm the only title company that consistently comes to visit them, and they are currently sending us 1 or 2 a year.
Oh, okay.
So hopefully it'll improve, but she said you're the only one that comes to see us consistently. So we'll see.
Well, consistency, positive persistence is definitely a good hallmark of a good salesperson, Kathy. So keep it up.
We'll see.
I have my good story was this morning. I went to my gym downstairs at my house, and I was standing in it, and I did not want to do my workout, and I really almost walked out of the gym, but I did some self-talk, and I started my workout, and before I knew it, I forgot that I didn't want to work out, and I finished it. So I chose to take the stairs this morning with my workout.
Awesome. Nice.
So when in the future, when we do these sessions, if you have a win, something you've scored in the past, a really good story like Kathy just told us, make a note and share it with the rest of us.
Kathy, I can say that we do have an office in Beaufort County that it was sort of like the 1 to maybe 3, maybe 4. Sometimes we might get a little 5 at the most. And I persistently went to that office, and I worked for, it's going to be 3 years this year. So I think that it has very much paid off. We get 90% of their work now. So I am very excited about that. They're our top office in Pitt and Beaufort County.
Yep, positive persistence. All right, so we're going to talk about something called CLASP today. It's an acronym. And it's basically a script or a technique for having a conversation with a new prospect. And so I'm going to share my screen. If I can find it. Where is it? All right, hold on a sec. I've managed to lose it. All right, let me try this again. All right, can everybody see that?
Yes.
Yes, okay, good, very good. All right, so CLASP is an acronym, and we're going to talk about what it stands for. But the number one rule I have with meetings with prospects and customers really, but particularly prospects, is be inquisitive, right? Ask lots of questions. I want you all to think about yourselves not as people whose job is to sell title insurance or to make money for their operation, to bring in orders. I want you to think about yourself as people who are asking questions to help other people. And so we know that we have good products, we have good people, we have great service, and there are people out there that can benefit from those things. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to find those that we can bring value to and who will benefit from what we're selling. And the only way that we can do that is by asking questions, trying to find out what's important to them, where their pain points are, how we can help them, and in what ways can we help them. So number one rule is be inquisitive. Ask lots of questions. So here is the technique. It's all CLASP, C-L-A-S-P. I'm reminded of that video we watched last week where Alec Baldwin was talking about ABC. A always B, C closing. All right, so CLASP, C-L-A-S-P, current situation. The L is for like, the A is for alter or change. The S is for signer, and the P is for paint the picture. I'm going to go over those individually as to which each one of those letters means. The thing I want to impress upon you is with this first conversation, it can be awkward. It can be challenging. We don't know this person yet. And we may be subtly or not so subtly putting pressure on ourselves to have a great first meeting and close business and talk them into sending us orders right away. And what I want you to think about instead is that this initial meeting is a fact-finding mission, right? Don't put pressure on yourself to make a sale, right? What you want to do is ask lots of questions and try to find out as much about the person and the account as you can. So I've got an introduction here to the conversation. And the first thing I want to say is you don't have to remember my introduction word for word. You don't even have to use it, but it does serve a purpose. I'm going to read it and I'm going to ask you all what purpose you think it serves. So it starts out something like, thanks for meeting with me today. I really appreciate you taking time because I know how busy you are. Our approach to title insurance is a little bit different. We want to have a good relationship with our customers. And like all good relationships, there must be some compatibility. So the first thing I want to say is that I'm not here to beg you for business, and I won't tell you that I want to earn your business. Instead, my goal today is to ask you a few questions and see if there is some compatibility between our two companies such that we could both benefit from the relationship. If so, great. If not, no big deal. How does that sound? Does that sound all right? So can somebody tell me what they think I'm trying to do with this introduction? What is my goal in using these words and saying this introduction? Kathy, you want to venture a guess?
Just to get to know them or to tell them what you're doing or see where they are, who they use currently.
Yeah, we're going to get into those specifics, but in this introduction, what I really want to do is I want to impress upon them that I'm not going to ask them for anything. Right? This first meeting, I am not going to ask you to send us business. I'm not going to ask for an order. I'm not going to ask you to send me a prior. I want to just kind of put them at ease that this is not going to be this high pressure selling atmosphere. I'm not going to push anything on you, right? I just want to get to know you. And hopefully that puts them at ease a little bit so that they can open up and have a conversation with us and not be worried about, oh gosh, is she going to ask me to do something, right? She's going to ask for an order, but she's going to ask me to do business with them. The idea behind this intro is just to kind of put them at ease. And like I said, you don't have to remember this word for word. You don't even have to use it, but just understand what I'm trying to do with this introduction is to put that customer at ease and let them know I'm not going to ask you for anything today. What we want to do is open up the dialogue so that we can get some information out of them. So the C in CLASP stands for current situation. All right, and what that is designed to do is help us to remember to ask this question: which title company or companies are you currently working with? Right, so that's who we want to know. And the reason we want to know is because we want to find out who our competition is for that account. If we know who our competition is for the account, that might tell us something about the prospect. And it just means that we know who we're up against. So the first question is, tell us who you're currently working with, or who do you like to work with? They might also tell us that, well, we have a lot of deals where it's directed, joint ventures. So, we can get that information out of them quickly and kind of understand who they like working with. And then that leads us to the next question, which is the L in CLASP, which is like. And that question is, what do you like about that company that you work with? When you work with that title company, what's important to you? So we're trying to figure out here what's important to the customer, right? And if we're listening and paying attention, they're going to tell us what we need to know about what's important to them. And it's going to be the lead in for when we start trying to sell to them, right? Because we want to find out from them what are those things that drive their decision to use a particular title company. The A is for alter or change, and it's very similar to the L, but it's kind of in reverse. So you would ask them, is there something you don't like about the company that you predominantly work with? Now, they may tell you something. They might say, yeah, the underwriting counsel is very conservative. Or they might say they got a backlog on prior policies and that's been frustrating. Likely, they're going to say, nope, nothing. They're perfect. They're awesome. We love them. So when you get that answer, what you want to do is try to interject some pain. So you might ask them some specifics like, okay, so you love them. That's great. Awesome. Well, tell me, what is their access to underwriting counsel like? Are they available? Are they conservative? Do they pick up the phone when you call? Do you have their cell phone? You're trying to find out whether that's really a pain point. And they might concede it to you. They might say, yeah, you're right. They're not as easy to get a hold of as we would like. Or they might say, nope, they're great. And then you move on to the next one. How about their turn times? When you send them a revision, do you get it back super quickly? How about commitments? What kind of turn time do you typically get from them? Is there a backlog on their policies, right? You're just kind of fishing here, looking for any sort of pain points and getting them to tell you a little bit more about what's important to them. Access to prior policies. Do you have access to prior policies through that company? If it's investors, then okay, they like to use investors, but they only have access to investors' policies. For joint ventures, you could have that conversation with them like, well, they're a joint venture and they don't have access to priors or they don't provide that service. And then you can ask them, how about information? Do they do CLEs? Do they do lunch and learns? Do you get a newsletter from them? And so again, the point is to just try to get out of them as much as you can about those services that we provide to see if their current provider is giving them to them, and two, how important those things are to them. The S in CLASP is for signer, or what I like to call is the decision maker, the DM, the decision maker. So you ask, who makes the decision for title in your organization? Is it you? Hopefully it is. Is it someone else? Is it multiple people? And why do we want to know this information? Because that's who we're going to ultimately sell to. It's great to have relationships with multiple people in an operation because you never know, that person could move on to another firm or that person could move into a position where they're a decision maker. But ultimately, the person that we have to convince is the one who chooses title. So we want to find out who that person is. If it's not the person that we're talking to, then it's okay to say, do you mind if we bring that person in on the conversation? Is she here? Do you think she has a few minutes to talk with us? Because at least at the very least, you want to meet this person, because the next time you come back, you're really going to focus your efforts on that decision maker. So remember, this is a fact-finding mission. So finding out who that person is that you're going to ultimately be selling to is critically important. And the P is for paint the picture. And so this is where you've taken everything that you've listened to, everything that you've heard, and then you're gonna paint a picture for this customer about the things that your operation provides. So I like to say something like, we take pride in providing value to our customers. If we can't provide value to you or your clients, then I would never expect you to do business with me. And you want to repeat to them the things that you heard. So in our time together, what I heard is that you are looking for an underwriter who is willing to come up with solutions to your title issues, and somebody who's very quick with revisions and turnarounds, and who's very responsive to issuing commitments, policies, answering questions. Is that basically right? So you want to repeat that to them and make sure that they know that you've listened and that you've heard them. So after you've done that, you want to now highlight the things that your operation does that they've identified as important to them. And if you've had enough time to assess their buying style, then you want to try to tailor those words to their buying style. Now, this can be tough to ascertain in a short conversation. There may be some clues right away. If the prospect is wearing a bright pink sweater, maybe we can assume she's an entertainer. If the attorney you're talking to has kept his hands in his pockets the entire time, maybe we can assume he's a counselor. If you don't know, assume they're a counselor, because I think most of the time, the people in our business, attorneys and paralegals both, tend to be counselors. So you've reiterated to them the things that they told you, and now you want to tell them a little bit about your operation. If you've identified the person as a counselor, you want to stress the stability of the company, and you want to let them know that there are things that your operation can do that can save their team time. It's less about the person with a counselor, it's more about the team. So the things that you can do is stress that at Fidelity, we're a Fortune 250 company. We have the $1 billion in reserves, which is the most of any carrier. We have the largest market share in the industry. We've been around since the late 70s. Our inside staff, you can talk about them, consists of 4 people. 3 of them used to be paralegals like yourself. You can talk about their access to the database of priors that you have. I used to like to say all of the carriers that Fidelity has purchased over the years that form that database. So I would tell we have access to a massive database. It has hundreds of thousands of policies in them. Not only Fidelity, but Chicago, Lawyers, Land America, Tycor, and probably several other companies that Fidelity's acquired over the years that I can't remember. Commonwealth is another one. And then the fact that maybe not currently, but you will soon have informative newsletters. Your office may be willing to do a lunch and learn for them. We put on lots of CLEs during the course of a month where they can get hours and learn things and get better at doing their jobs. So for a counselor, there are several things that you can highlight. Remember that they like stability and they want to save their team time. For fighters, you want to keep it very direct. You're not going to waste much more time after you've, tell them the things that they said to you were important. You might stress that Fidelity is a very big company in the Fortune 250. It has the reserves and maybe helpful underwriting counsel. I'd love to introduce you to my underwriting counsel, Jack Sawyer. He's super helpful, and I think you'd love to talk with him. But something quick, dirty, get it and just get out. Detectives like numbers, so you may want to stress percentages. Something like, we don't expect to get all of our priors back in the form of a new order. If we get 40-45% back, we're happy. Our average turn time is 20 minutes. Or last month, our folks found 500 priors, right? But you're stressing numbers with detectives. And then lastly, your entertainers. They don't like numbers. You want to stress maybe happy hours. I know Fidelity or Raleigh does Fidelity Connect, and that may be an idea that we may help you other branches look into, is having a monthly happy hour. So stressing that we do happy hours, that we do fun and informative newsletters, we have fun and cool marketing swag that we'll bring by, just something that's fun or informative. And then you're done. Like once you've let them know, hey, this is what I heard you say, and you've picked out the 2 or 3 or 4 things about your operation that may fit their buying style, you know, you're pretty much done with the conversation. In summary, what I want to say to you before we talk about the close is be inquisitive, ask lots of questions, find out if you can about their processes. Like, how does it work? Who does the title search? Who looks up for the prior policy? Is it the same person as the title search? Then what happens after the title search comes in? Does it go to another person? And then what does that person do? Ultimately, does the attorney sign the opinion, and who decides like where, you know, what title insurance company is going to be involved? So, you know, try to find out as much about their processes, the way they go about it, as you can in that first meeting. And if you sense, you know, they don't want to talk about it, or if you sense that the conversation's going long, it's fine. You'll just try to pick it up the next time. And if you can, try to find out how many closings they do. I would ask that question fairly often, and sometimes people don't want to tell you when you say how many closings do you do. So you could say something like, you only have one attorney here, and she does all the closings? Oh, wow. How many closings can she do by herself? They'll tell you the answer to that question. Or you have 3 paralegals here, and you're all doing transactions? How many can one of you do a month? And, you know, they'll say, oh, well, we do about 20 each. And when you ask it that way, it's pretty non-threatening. And I have never had somebody refuse to answer those questions. Most of the time, they like bragging about the fact that I'm the only paralegal here and I do 50 orders a month. But having some knowledge about how many orders they do allows you to assess the account. How much time do I want to spend on an account that does 5 closings a month? How much time do I want to spend on an account that does 50 closings a month? And how many of those 50 are being done by different paralegals who are all their own decision makers? So after you've said about 2 or 3 things about your operation that you think the person will appreciate because you've listened to the things they said were important, I would close with something very brief like this. Having spoken to you now for 5, 10, 15 minutes, I really think that our firms are compatible. I think that we can provide some value to your law firm here. And, you know, in the weeks and months to come, you'll be seeing more of me, and you know, I just look forward to seeing you and getting to learn more about you. Thanks for your time. I'll see you soon. Right. Again, you know, at this first meeting, you're not asking them to send you an order. You're just thanking them for their time and letting them know that you really see that you can bring value to their operation. All right, so here's a quote from Walt Disney. The way to get started is to quit talking and begin doing. So I would love for us to practice. Do I have a volunteer that would like to kind of role play with me and go through this technique? Anybody? Carolyn, you want to give it a shot?
Oh boy, you're picking on me?
I know I am picking on you because you're one of the newbies.
Oh God, okay.
But let me do this first. Let me do a role play with Summer, where Summer is the paralegal, and you can kind of watch it, and then maybe you can try it.
Okay.
So Summer, you are a paralegal, and I'm calling on you, and I've never met you before. And I think everybody knows Summer used to be a paralegal. She worked in a law firm, in fact, one of Barrister's Title's customers. So are you ready, Summer?
Sure. My
Okay.
favorite thing.
Well, Summer, thanks for meeting with me. I won't be long. I just really want to find out a little bit more about your operation and what kind of value we might be able to bring to your operation. I really just want to spend some time with you asking questions, and then I'll leave you alone.
Okay,
that sound?
great. I've got about 3 minutes.
Okay, perfect. So tell me, which title companies are you currently working with and do you like working with?
We use several, mostly investors, but we use several, and we have a lot that we don't get to choose, that just go directly through the builder developer.
So of the ones that you do use, who would you say you use the most? Investors?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And what do you like about investors?
They're fast.
Fast. So by fast, what do you mean? Like revisions, commitments, policies? Can you break that down for me?
The commitments and the policies mostly. They're pretty quick on all around.
How about revisions? If you need a revision, are they fairly responsive?
Probably not as quick as the commitments, but fast enough.
Okay, well, let me ask you this. If there was something you could change about investors or something you don't like about investors, is something come to mind for you?
Sometimes they're hard to get on the phone.
So you mean to talk to an underwriter or talk to counsel?
Both, but probably counsel. Getting answers to questions aren't super quick.
Okay. Now let me ask you this: Who decides which title company you choose? Is it you?
No, it's usually our attorney.
The attorney. Do you have any input in that?
Not usually, but if there is a choice, then if they send it to me and something changes in it and it opens up, then I'll choose. But mostly comes from them. Okay,
great. And I think you said that he was not in the office today, right?
No, unfortunately not.
Okay. All right. So I just want to make sure that I understood you. You said that you like using investors mostly because they're fairly quick, although they're not awfully great with revisions sometimes, and that their counsel is not perhaps as responsive as you'd like for them to be.
Yep, pretty much.
Okay. All right, well, I haven't spoken to you now for a few minutes. I really think that our operation can bring value to your firm. The one thing I would tell you about our company is that our underwriting counsel is super helpful. She usually puts her cell phone on her business card, and our customers have a lot of access to her and asking her questions. So, and I think that might be helpful to you.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, so I'd love to come back, perhaps meet your attorney, maybe bring our counsel, and get to learn a little bit more about you and your operation. But I really appreciate the time, and I'll see you soon.
All right, sounds great. Nice meeting you.
All right, so something like that. Carolyn, you want to try now?
Do I have to?
No,
I
you
was
don't have
very
to.
nice to him. You should be really mean.
No, you don't have to.
I'm kidding.
If anybody wants to volunteer, we can do that. If not, we can move on. All right, how about questions? Does anybody have any questions? Is this technique something you think you can employ, you can use to your benefit? Cindy?
Actually, that sounds like a typical conversation that I have with
Yeah.
clients. I mean,
Yeah,
really, for real, I'm like, that's just like being out of one of the offices. So,
yeah, and I was going to ask you as a follow-up, like what types of questions do you ask when you're out in the field?
we do ask if, about the other title companies, what their services are, what they like about them, what they dislike about them. And usually they're pretty honest with me about it. And, a lot of times I've got right many that right now in Greenville are telling us that the lenders are having a big impact on that.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I've had those conversations as well. You know, the only thing I think you can do in those situations is just stress that you have counsel. Those joint ventures oftentimes don't. You have access to priors. A lot of those joint ventures either don't have access or are not interested in providing the service. And you know, fight the good fight if you can. I don't know, you know, what else you can tell an attorney. They're going to chase the business, and if the business comes with strings, then most of them are willing to accept those strings.
I've actually had an attorney a couple of weeks ago. She, the paralegal, she told me, she says, well, she said, if we don't use, if that bank does, whatever lender they're dealing with, we don't use their title insurance company, they're not sending us any business, and they send us 90% of their business.
Right. Right. I've had some folks over the years who have told me, if we're forced to use a particular title company by a lender or realtor, we will not ask you for a prior because we don't think it's fair to take a prior from you and then give it to another title company. And, you know, all you can do is say thank you to those people. But there are other attorneys who have no problem with asking you for dozens of priors, knowing that full well they're never going to be able to send those to you because they're
Absolutely.
captive. Yeah, and it's tough.
I mean, we have one of our top offices in Morale. She'll flat out tell you, I don't care what anybody wants. I know who I like, and they use us 100%.
So what I would say in those situations is I would try to isolate the amount of orders that are available where they have some choice. So, you know, you can ask them, well, how many closings do you do a month? Maybe they'll answer it. I mean, say 50. Okay. And of those 50, how many would you say are already spoken for? Like the lender has told you that they're going to another title company. Well, I'd say probably 40. All right. So we're talking about 80%. So obviously we can't compete on those 40, but we would like to be considered for the 10 where you have discretion. And so you're just taking that objection off the table. Like I'm not talking about those. Those are not in play. What I'm looking for is how many of the ones where you have discretion that we can be helpful with.
I do know in particular in that one office we got down to percentages, and she says, we give them 90% of our business, and then the last 10%, they go down, they have a list, and they don't really pick and choose who those are. They just go down the list. This one gets one, the next one gets another one, blah, 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 blah. So.
Yeah, and you know, I was going to say that sometimes people won't tell you numbers. They won't tell you how many closings they do a month for whatever reason, and then you can pivot to percentages.
I do have a question.
Yeah.
It's not quite pertaining to this part, but how is it that a title company like Tryon can look up any prior policy and we don't have access to that?
Well, they have access to their own. So
Because we have been told that Tryon, Denise had sent me a screenshot of the message from the girl, and she says, they can find out any policy. You just call or email once and get a policy update instead of checking around.
say
I've
that
got to
again.
find
With
it.
that as well.
I've got a firm that said Tryon does all of our searches. And I said, searches? Is that a part that we're not doing? And she said, oh no, they find every policy out there that we need. So we send it back to them. And I said, what about even investors? And I'm not sure she knew what she was talking about, but she said, yeah, I think they get us investors too, but we know that's not possible. But
Yeah, I mean, Tryon's an agent, so I'd say one, they have access to their own, but if they're doing what they're supposed to, they're remitting those policies to the carriers. And so anything that they write on Fidelity or Chicago or Commonwealth paper would go into our database as well. And then as an agent, they have access to Fidelity's policies, and they have access to First American policies because I'm pretty sure they're a First American agent. So, their only advantage is that they have access to First American and you don't.
I think most folks feel like it's a one-stop shop.
Well, I can tell you from experience, First American's database is not that great. Yeah, there are policies in there, but they're not nearly as expansive as the Fidelity database. When we were finding things, we would find probably 80% of our stuff on Fidelity. And Ken told me about a conversation he had with somebody at Tryon where they said that 60% of the policies they find are on Fidelity. So, there are some things perhaps they're finding on First American, but majority is the same database that you're looking in. And I mean, that's one thing that you can say is that, Tryon's a Fidelity agent. They're looking in the exact same place as we are.
But I've even told folks that it's taking it away from the local center when they're sending it to Tryon because they are not local to me.
Yeah, and that might work with some people is to stress the fact that you're local and Tryon doesn't really have a presence in Greensboro. And
they don't have local counsel, nobody to back them up if they need it. And I've got an attorney that I'm going to see when his paralegal comes back from maternity leave next week. But I'm going to ask him, have you ever met their counsel? More than likely not, because they're a remote law firm. Just, if you come into a problem, do you know who you're going to call?
Right. Right. And, the other thing you could possibly say is that Tryon's an agency and agencies come and go, but Fidelity is not. Fidelity will be here until the apocalypse.
I know one thing I'm kind of dealing with Tryon is their extended hours. I don't know if anybody else has dealt with that or that they love that they're open on Saturdays from 9 to 1 or 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. at night. That's basically the kickback I get for Tryon, besides the priors. But
yeah, I mean, that's a really good service. And,
yeah,
I think Ken knows about that and perhaps there's something that we can do that's similar. So yeah, we know about it, and it's a good service. It's all I could really say about it at this point. These sorts of questions, ladies, if you have them, if you come across a question and you want kind of help trying to figure out what might be a good response, you know how to reach me. Call me, email me. We can jump on Teams together and we can try to figure out perhaps a response to these sorts of things. But the CLASP framework is, I think a good thing to remember, a good mnemonic for remembering to go through a process where you ask questions with the ultimate idea of getting the information about the account that tells you what's important to them and trying to keep that first conversation light, no pressure, but just as a fact-finding process that you can take back and then figure out like where you want to go from there. And hopefully it's an easy mnemonic to remember, CLASP and all of the, what all the letters mean. Next lesson is a book called Emotional Intelligence for Sales Success by Colleen Stanley. This is a good book, y'all. I've read it. This was actually a book recommended to me by Fidelity. Colleen Stanley knows what she's talking about. If any of you want this book, I can order it for you and send it to you. I do recommend that you read it, but you don't. I'm not making it mandatory, and it's not mandatory to get anything out of the training session. But you really should read it. So if any of you want me to buy this for you and send it to you, send me an email and I'll order it for you. It is available on Audible. So I know that maybe one or more of you like to listen to your books versus read them. It is available on Audible. And if you buy it, you can expense it from through the company. But this will be our next lesson, and Colleen's got some really good things to say about being a salesperson. So before I cut you loose, any questions about CLASP or anything else? All right, sounds like the answer is no. So I will stop recording.